So, last lesson we were doing circles. We were doing area and circumference of circles, and a number of you have completed that and found it okay, and a number of you struggled a bit. Okay, so this is the plan for today. I'm going to go and do the teaching for the next bit, okay, for the next worksheet, but I only want you to start doing those questions once you are happy and you've really completed the last one successfully. So looking at the moment, Finn's completed 9 out of 15, so I'd like you to go back and just try and correct some of the ones you got wrong, Finn. Lucy, that's excellent, all 4 marks. Sophie HT, 13 out of 15. So up to you whether you want to move on or you want to get those other 2 right. Ralph, you got them all right, well done. Yes, let me see. Yes, Douglas, 14 out of 15. Charlotte, 14 out of 15. Zach, 15 out of 15. Sophia, 14 out of 15. Ted, 11 out of 15. Rachel, 15 out of 15. Henry, 9 out of 15. So really only move on once you feel really comfortable with circles and do this bit. So this is my plan. I'm going to teach the new bit, so those of you who are moving on can just get on with the Dr. Frost questions, which are called area and perimeter of part circles. But I'm then going to go over the normal circle material again. So I'm going to repeat the last lesson. And any of you who are struggling, I want you to be interrupting me and say, look, I don't get that bit, or I don't get that bit, okay? Because there's not much point you guys moving on to this harder stuff if you're still struggling with the sort of the starting stuff. All right, whoops. So, okay, so that's the plan. Just get my calculator ready. So, moving on. So, yeah, if you could just make sure you're muted. I think somebody might be unmuted at the moment, so I'm just getting a little bit of noise. So this will be a classic question for the new ones, okay? So I'm only going to do the one. So I'm going to model finding the area of this 3/4 of a circle and the perimeter. So let's imagine it was a whole circle. If it was a whole circle, the area is pi r squared. Now remember the little rhyme, cottage pies delicious, apple pies are too. So I'm just writing that at the top of the screen. So those are the 2 formulae we might be using. So we're finding the area, so we're going to be using pi r squared. Now that would find out the area if it was a whole circle, but this is 3/4 of a circle. So the area for our question is going to be 3/4 of whatever pi r squared is. Okay, now remember r is the radius, and the radius is the length from the outside to the middle. So we've been given the radius. Okay, so to answer this question, we're just going to do 3/4 excuse me, times pi times the radius squared. So that's going to be times 10 squared, or you can think of it as just times 10 times 10. So popping that into my calculator, so 0.75 is 3/4 multiplied by pi using the pi button. Remember that's the bottom middle key using the shift, times 10 times 10, and I get 75 pi. Press the SD button, I get 235.619 ... Read the question. Let's go and say it said 1 decimal place. Then that would be 235.6 centimeters squared if we had to give the units. Okay, 235.6. There's just a slight lag, isn't there? Okay, now working out the perimeter, there's a bit more work to it. Okay, first of all, we've got to work out the length of the curvy bit, which I'm just doing in orange. But remember what perimeter means. It means running all the way around the shape. So we would be running around the orange bit, then we would be running along that red bit back to the center, and then we would be running upwards back to where we started with the green bit. So I need you all to appreciate that if you were running around that shape and you started at the top, as you run round, you first of all run around the orange bit, then the red bit, then the green bit. So we've got to add those 3 lengths together. Now let's get the 2 easy ones done first of all. Of course, the red one's just 10 centimeters and the green one's 10 centimeters. So you must remember to add those bits on. I think some of you were getting that wrong on the last exercise, so you might want to just go back and correct those. Now, working out the curvy bits, well, that's 3/4 of the circumference, isn't it? That's 3/4 of all the way around. And remember, circumference equals pi times the diameter. So that's going to be 3/4 times pi times the diameter. Now remember what the diameter is of a circle. It's the length all the way across from one side to the other through the center. So the diameter of this circle is going to be not 10, that's the radius, but 20. The diameter all the way across is 20. So that's going to be 3/4 times pi times the diameter, which is 20. So popping that into my calculator, 0.75 times pi times 20 equals 15 pi. Press the SD button, I get 47.123 ... So the total perimeter, I'm going to add those 3 lengths together, the orange length, the red length and the green length. So that's my 47.123, add 10, which is 67.123 ... Again, let's assume the question said to 1 decimal place. That would be 67.1 centimeters. Centimeters because it's a length. So I've got that perimeter of 67.123 by adding those 3 numbers together. So that's it. For those of you who feel confident with circles, all right, I want that you don't need to carry on listening to the rest of this bit, but I'm going to keep on recording because I'm just going to run through the basics again for those of you who struggled last lesson. Okay, so it'd be great if you could still remain in the lesson, but I'm quite happy that you're not really listening and you're just getting on with the Dr. Frost questions titled Area and Perimeter of Part Circles. So for those of you who were struggling a bit, let's just go back through the basics again, please. So you've really got to get to grips with what all the words are. Now the radius, R, is the length from the outside of the circle to the middle. That bit I'm just done again. That is the radius. Okay, and we use the radius for the area formula, which we'll come on to in a minute. Now the diameter is the length all the way across from one side of the circle to the other side of the circle through the center. And you'll see that that is 2 radii, 2 radiuses, okay? Because we've got 1 radius up to the middle and another radius to get to the other side. So that's why over in the corner, down at the bottom, I've gone and said about the radius being half the diameter, and you double the radius to get the diameter. So you need to be comfortable if the question gives you the radius and you need the diameter, that you double it. But if the question gives you the diameter and you need the radius, you halve it. Now, remember what perimeter is. Perimeter is the length all the way around a shape. Now, circle, the perimeter of a circle has got a special name. It's called the circumference, okay? If you circumnavigate the world, you're going all the way around the world, okay? Circumference, that is the length all the way around the outside of the shape, which I'm just doing in yellow. Not sure if you can see it. Yeah, you can just see it faintly, okay? Now, a question can ask you to do 2 things. It might ask you to work out the circumference, and that's got its own special formula, or it might ask you to work out the radius, and that's got its, work out the area, and that's also got its own special formula. So moving on to the next slide, we'll have a look at the 2 formulae. So if you need to work out the circumference, you use that first formula, that C equals pi times D. The circumference equals pi times the diameter. So you need to make sure you're using the diameter for that one. However, if the question asks you to work out the area, we use pi r squared. Okay, so pi r squared. So those are the two formulae that you have to learn. And that bit in red there is my suggestion of a little rhyme to help you learn it. Okay, cottage pie is delicious. Well, the C from cottage is the C, the pi is the pi, and the D is the diameter. Okay, and apple pies are 2, A for A, pi for pi, and R2 is the R squared. Okay, so you need to learn those. So anybody who is struggling a bit, does anybody want to ask me any questions about the two formulae? The one on the left is what you use if the question's asking you to work out the circumference, and the one on the right is if the question's asking you to work out the area. So please feel free to wave or unmute and ask for help if you don't quite understand what's on that slide. Okay. So to finish then, I just want to model again the various answers. I should have covered those up again, sorry, let's just cover those up again. Okay, so we've got two different circles here. Okay, the one on the left and the one on the right. Now the one on the left, the question has been worded that they've given us the length to the middle, that is the radius. Okay, whereas the question on the right, that 20 is the length all the way across, that's given us the diameter. Just wait for the lag to catch up. So the length on the right, that is the diameter. Oh, we've got quite a lag there. There we go. Okay, so let's go and try and work out both the circumference, which is the length all the way around the outside of the circle, and the area, that's obviously the space inside the circle, for both of these circles. So starting with the question on the left, to work out the circumference, you start by writing down the circumference formula, cottage pie is delicious. All right, so the circumference equals pi times the diameter. Now with this one, we've been given the radius, but we need the diameter. So we need to double that 6 to get 12. Okay, so the circumference equals pi times 12. The diameter for the first circle is 12. It's the length all the way across. It's the length all the way across. The diameter equals 12. Okay, so pi times 12, pop that into your calculator, press the SD button, you get 37.69, rounded 37.7. Now, to work out the area, you've got to use the formula area equals pi r squared. Now, the question gave us the radius. It gave us that it is 6, so it's going to be pi times 6 squared. So pi times 6 times 6, which is 113.097, which is 113.1 when you round it. Now moving over to the circle on the right, to work out the circumference, that's pi times the diameter. The question's given us the diameter, okay? It's 20, we don't need to adjust it. We want the diameter, we've got the diameter. So we're going to do pi times 20, pop it into our calculator, round it, we get 62.8. Now, to work out the area, we're going to use the formula area equals pi r squared. Okay, that's going to need the radius. Now, the radius is the length to the middle, so the radius equals 10, half of 20. So for this question, the area pi r squared, it's going to be pi times 10 times 10. Pop that into your calculator, round it, you get 314.2. So any of you who are struggling, please can you just put up your hand or unmute and ask for help if there's any bits there you would like me to go over. Okay. Okay, well done, guys. So I want you guys to be getting on with, so remember, please go and complete the circle one before you move on to the before you move on to the part circle one, please?